Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch You Want, and thanks for logging on. Today we're looking at the Longines Heritage Pulsometer Chronograph. You can see this 40mm vintage-styled monopusher chronograph on our website, watchyouwant.com. You can buy it there, and if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Watch You Want Inc. You can also click on the card in the upper right-hand corner of the screen at any time to see our full listing for this watch, with extra high-res images, accessories included, and of course complete pricing details. Now on my wrist, 16 centimeters in circumference, 6.3 inches. You can see that this watch has the vintage look, but it has a contemporary size. 40mm across the round of the case means that it has good wrist presence. It doesn't look like a true vintage watch, which would appear more like a quarter or some sort of subway token strapped to the wrist. Now this is 40mm across the round. It has a reasonable 49.5mm span from edge of lug to edge of lug, and in terms of thickness, it's a contemporary 14mm, so it's got a little bit of a squat look to it, imparted partially by the chronograph complication and the automatic winding. The watch sits secure on a smaller wrist. Less than 50mm from lug to lug means it's going to fit most wrists. Even if your wrist is as small as 13.5 centimeters in circumference, you should be able to wear this one with style and security. And of course, because it does have a little bit of body and volume to it, if your wrist is larger, there's no problem stepping up either. This watch is going to look right at home. One thing I like about the watch is that the vintage style continues on the strap itself. First of all, straight spring bars, so you don't have to worry about any kind of virtual flare to the strap. If your wrist is small, pull it straight down and around. Also, the contrasting stitch, a sort of simulated aged ecru against a rectangular scale brown alligator leather, is both vintage style and highly attractive objectively, and it's matched with a simple, traditional Longines branded pin buckle for easy and quick adjustments. Now, this watch, launched in 2015, continues the very successful and highly evocative collection of Longines heritage watches. Longines has 5 principal model lines, but perhaps the hottest one with enthusiasts in terms of outright interest and buzz is that heritage line. Everything from the dive watches to this doctor-style chronograph. Now, it's inspired by Longines watches of the 1920s and 1930s, and the company's gone a long way towards keeping the look authentic while again scaling everything up and imparting a little bit of modern automatic winding convenience on the back. First of all, the dial, a pulsation scale. The idea is that you start the chronograph, you count to 30 pulsations after starting the chronograph at the index at 12. Now, whatever the indication is along the pulsation scale, after you've counted off 30 beats and stopped the chronograph, that's the beat per minute rate of the patient. So the pulsation scale is a clever touch because it allows the watch to have a vintage vibe while also adding the characteristic white, red, and blue tritone that made these early 20th century dials so animated and interesting. Also interesting is the fact that it is a true lacquered dial. It has a beautiful gloss white to it with painted Arabic numerals in high contrast black, so it's got a little bit of artisanal charm to it that's rare in this price range. Of course, at center, those gorgeous blue Breguet style hands give the watch real character, and there is a slight countersink to the sub-registers to add just a bit more texture to the dial itself so it's not completely flat. Again, because this is a contemporary timepiece, you have the convenience of a date anchored nicely at 6 o'clock where it preserves the symmetry of the dial. Now, the caseback is an interesting one because what you're looking at is the Longines exclusive caliber 7882. Very distantly related to the famed Valjoux 7750. It's more immediately related to the L688 that debuted in 2009, an exclusive movement for Longines, built for Longines by ETA. But what really set the 688 and this 788 version apart is that instead of using the cam system for engaging the chronograph of the 7750, it uses a column wheel function selector, and in this case you can see the column wheel is actually coaxial with the ratchet wheel underneath. So it's interesting, when you wind the watch you can actually see the ratchet wheel moving underneath, and when you cycle the chronograph you can see its interaction with the 4 columns of the wheel itself. So with the column wheel, not only do you get a more traditional system of actuating the functions, but you get a better tactile feel. Underneath the finger, the start, the stop, and the reset are as crisp as you'd expect from a column wheel architecture. But Longines gives you just a little bit more with unique forms of decoration, namely the use of Côte de Genève on the rotor, but machine-turned perlage on the bridges. It's a little bit differently than how it's usually done. It's usually Côte de Genève on the bridges and engine-turned base plate. It also upgrades the basic movement, jumping from the typical 42 to 44-hour power reserve of the 7750 to a more robust 54 in this timepiece. So you get something that's distinctive, yet has a tried-and-true base caliber with a few hot-rodded custom edition features specifically for Longines. You're not going to find this caliber in any other Swatch Group product, so you do have a little bit of a sense of an in-house movement, or at the very least, mechanical exclusivity. But the bottom line is, in a watch this handsome, do you really care what's inside? Sure, there's the element of us that's intellectually tied to the movement, but this watch is all about raw emotion. It's evocative, it's charming, it's romantic, and it's beautiful. It's part of the most successful line of modern Longines watches, and no surprise, it does that by reaching deep back into history. You can see this Longines Heritage Pulsometer Chronograph and buy it on our website, watchyouwant.com.